Thank you all and welcome. We can get started here. It's 5 p.m. and I'm calling the meeting of the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee to order on Thursday, November 9th, 2023 at the Austin Transit Partnership Office Boardroom at 203 Colorado Street. The first thing we'll go over is our roll call. So this is Chair Azhar. I am here and I'll move on to our other members. Mr. Conley.
Here.
Mr. Hendricks. Ms. Plateau.
Here.
Ms. Lopez. Ms. Summers.
I'm
here. I'm here.
Ms. Lopez, we noted you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Broadwater.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Gorse.
I'm here.
Mr. Elias.
Here.
And Mr. Taylor.
Present.
And then we have our ex officio member, Dr. Garner. Hopefully I did not miss anyone. Did we get everybody?
You can get Mr. Hendricks, who said that he was having trouble unmuting.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Hendricks, for noting that as well. We'll note you as present, and hopefully when we get to a vote, you can either turn your video on, raise your hand, or join us via voice so we can take a record of your vote.
I'm good, thank you. I just couldn't get my mouse over there quick enough. Thanks.
No worries, it got you. Thank you so much. And I believe Mr. Miguel Lopez, you're going to lead us to the land acknowledgement.
Yes, sir, Chair. To ground yourself before starting this meeting, it's important to talk about the history of this region. Long before it came to be known as Waterloo or Austin, this region has drawn people here for thousands of years, in part because of our waterways and the wealth of natural resources. This region has been home to the Tonkawa, the Cualteca, as well as the Comanche, Lipan Apache, Sana, Humanos, and many others I may not have named who were also caretakers of this land. I highlight this history because Native and Indigenous peoples are routinely erased from the conversation, referred to as having disappeared or having been conquered. Native and Indigenous peoples are still here and present in what we now call Austin. The pursuit of white land ownership, profit, and so-called progress has harmed Black, Indigenous, and people of color in this city. The effects of the legacy of settler colonialism, the theft of land, slavery, and genocide are still felt and present with us today. It's vital to keep this history in mind as you do this important work and make a commitment to stop perpetuating the cycle of violence against Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lopez. We really appreciate that. My next item is our public comment. Did we have anyone signed up in advance for the meeting?
We have no one set up in advance.
No, sorry.
It's like not, I don't think we have anybody here in person either. If there's anyone who's joining us virtually and would like to provide public comment, if you raise your hand, we can move you over so you should be able to speak. So we'll give a moment. If there's attendees who would like to speak with us today in public comments, you can raise your hand. Seeing no hands, I think we can move on. So our next item is the approval of our October 12th CAC meeting minutes. These were distributed earlier by Mr. Lopez, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Is there anyone who has anything they would like us to change or edit in these minutes?
Make sure you said a year. That was a comment from Brandon earlier.
I appreciate that. So I guess if we do not have, do we have a motion to approve our October 12th, 2023 CSE meeting minutes?
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Ms. Plateau. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. So we have a motion from Ms. Plateau, seconded by Mr. Taylor, to approve our October 12th, 2023 CSE meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. That passes unanimously. So we'll move on to our first action item for the day. So this is a selection of a CSE representative to our nominating committee. So just a reminder to all, essentially, that if you remember, we had just, was it a month ago or 2 months ago, we had made a change to our governance and our bylaws, essentially saying that the selection for the CSE will be through board members of the CAC Metro Board and Austin City Council members. And then the CSE would have the ability to appoint one person to that nominating committee to go through the nomination process. I'm hoping, as you all are well aware, we have a nomination, an application process that is open at this time and should be closing on the 17th. So please share that with your community members and fellows and other people that you work with. Make sure that they have the ability to submit their application. But part of that is that we will have a CSE member serving on the nominating committee. And so we have to appoint someone to that nominating committee today. Part of the decision that I made and honestly, I think it makes sense, is that for all the folks who are currently seeking renomination, it makes sense for them to not serve in that position. Because naturally, we do not want folks making a decision that would affect their nomination, even if they're not part of that finite discussion. And so really, since we do have members who are staying on till the end of the year and have expressed essentially that they do not wish to renominate or ask for a renomination, we can move ahead with them. And my thought had been Ms. Lopez. So I'll stop there. I would like to nominate Ms. Lopez to the nominating committee, but I'll open up to discussion and see if folks have other thoughts, or if there's someone else who's interested, or if there's anything that people want to bring to my attention.
I would second the nomination of Ms. Lopez, assuming that she is available and willing to serve on the committee.
I appreciate that, Mr. Connolly, and I should have mentioned that yes, indeed, I was able to have a conversation with her, and I'm very thankful to her that she agreed to serve in this position. Ms. Lopez, I don't know if you want to say something.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in serving in this capacity.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking this on, because I know it's an additional duty and it will require some additional time, but we're thankful for your leadership on this.
Thank you.
So I guess not hearing otherwise, we're chatting along really fast here, folks. Love it. Not hearing otherwise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to nominate Ms. Lopez to serve on the nominating committee for 2024 as a CSE representative. And I believe, Mr. Conley, you were a second on this?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So motion by me, seconded by Mr. Conley, to appoint Ms. Renee Lopez as a CSE representative on the nominating committee for 2024. All those in favor say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Conley, could we get a voice vote for you?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Ms. Lopez, for serving in this position.
Thank you.
This takes us to our discussion items. And the first one today is really looking at our anti-displacement funding spending dashboard. This is something that our staff has been looking into coming to us, and I really appreciate all of their efforts on this. Ms. Dorado, I believe you're going to be leading this conversation.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. And yes, today we're going to be showing you a pretty advanced draft of what we have been doing, we have been working on when developing the Project Connect anti-displacement dashboard. Giannis, do you have the presentation?
I do. I have the PDF.
Yes, that works.
Yes.
So this is really a very great moment for us to really show you all what we are planning on having be showed to the public on this dashboard, and get your feedback on the different components that we are working on having here. And obviously at the end, there's several next steps that we are planning on still working on. So again, all of your comments and feedback is going to be very much appreciated. on this. Perfect.
Is everybody seeing?
Yes,
the
if
slide?
you want to remove the tools. Okay. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so like I said, it's a very simple presentation, but I'm gonna first talk about the direction that we were given for doing this task. Then we're gonna show you a preview and then kind of very briefly talk about next steps before getting your comments. So next slide. So this is kind of like just a reminder of what this is. So together with the 300 million anti-displacement funds, we were directed to develop a publicly available performance dashboard to track the progress on strategies that have been identified for implementation for each of the neighborhoods that is frequently updated. So this is kind of the dashboard that we have started. And so it would include at this point the spending that has been for the 3 buckets that we have been talking about for land development, land acquisition, and also the community initiated solutions. So if you go to the next slide, and actually also the following, because that's just, yeah. And so, and also I have a more up-to-date slide. This is just an image that we were able how this works. So this is, we have 2 different kind of images that will be part of the dashboard. One is going to be including all of the work or all of the projects that are included as part of our real estate projects that are part of Project Connect. So this include new developments or new units or land development, and also all of those that are land acquisition, but also preservation. Preservation was also a component for this. And so what we're going to be showing in the dashboard is going to be a list of all of the projects that fall and have Project Connect funds. We're going to be showing the number of affordable units, total units in case the development itself might not entirely be affordable, total funds, so the total funds that are being used for this. We also have in your little graph on your right, we're also wanting to show where these developments fall in terms of our displacement risk areas that we have identified. So we have the vulnerable, active, and chronic displacement risk areas. And then we also have at the bottom, as you can see, kind of where the units land in terms of the median family income. In terms of the details, we're still tweaking and making sure that we're connecting the right the information that it's correctly connected, and just kind of explaining the development process of this. This dashboard basically feeds automatically from a database that the real estate team in the housing department has, which is the Austin Housing Inventory. And so in that database is where they kind of log all of the new projects that are coming in. And so we are trying to work with that database that already exists to feed information directly and automatically into this new dashboard, so that we're using kind of the database that already exists and we're not kind of creating more work. And as we're doing this, we're also kind of finding some issues with the data or kind of how the data is reported. So there's a lot of kind of that type of work that we are kind of looking at it now and making sure that we're showing the appropriate information. So that's why I mean, like, please take a look at what we're trying to show, and the details right now, those might change because we are kind of working on those data improvements and kind of that back-end connection, if you will. But this is what we're planning on having and showing in terms of the real estate projects that are part of Project Connect. And then if you go to the next slide, this would be the component of the community initiated solutions. And so as you'll see, it has all of the different organizations that were awarded funds. And then we have here, again, this is a static image, but you'll be able to scroll to the right, and there'll be a few other columns that you can have specific information per organization that was awarded funds, so you can have a little bit more of in-depth information. But we're again showing who is being benefited in terms of the displacement risk areas. Of course, these funds are geographic specific, so everyone that is being served has to be within one of the 3 displacement risk geographies, so active, chronic, or vulnerable. But we want to make sure that we are taking into account where those are, who is being served. And then we have kind of other characteristics that we know are indicative of a vulnerable population. So children who are living in poverty, renters are vulnerable as well to displacement, and households without a bachelor's degree that are being served. We know that those are characteristics of folks that are most vulnerable to displacement. So we added those in there as well. You'll see a total number of households that have been served, how many of those are households of color, and then people, kind of a broader net of people reached. And so what this means, and the difference between this one and the other number, is there are several organizations, and you might remember from last month when my colleague Susan came to present about the different organizations. Some organizations are not necessarily doing direct services to households, but are doing kind of a broader net, kind of bigger outreach through classes or other activities. And so that is what that number represents, is that the number of folks that have been reached in total. So this information, actually, we just are receiving some of the reports. We get monthly reports from all of the organizations every month. So between today and tomorrow, we're receiving more reports for the month of October. So this is going to be updated again. So we want to make sure that when we publish, we make this public, there is more robust, more data that we can be showing, rather than having kind of empty spaces, which we know with time they will get filled, of course. But since the organizations recently started, we wanted to give a couple months at least, so that there's more data that can be shown. Yes, and then next slide. And then just wanted to briefly touch upon some of the next steps. So we're planning on having this link be publicly available in mid-November. And like I said, we were kind of waiting to have a little bit more data to be able to show, and to be able to work on some of those details on the real estate side, and making sure that the data that we're connecting from our database is the correct one. And so this information is going to live in our displacement prevention website. And so, yes, so that is kind of our plan for mid-November. So in a couple of weeks, we should be able to have this up. And of course, getting the feedback from you all, we'll be able to incorporate any additional changes. Like I said, data management, we're still figuring out and working on some challenges on our database side in terms of the real estate side mainly. We've had a new position that is going to be filled soon, and who will be kind of overseeing this Austin housing inventory data. So will be able to help us kind of really get to some of the root issues of some of the data, and how we're able to extract from that database. And then the last point, which is definitely something important, it's measuring progress, right? Right now, as the dashboard stands, is really showing how the money is being used and who is it going to, and kind of that description. But the next step of this is really, how do we measure the progress, right? And so this goes with a conversation of developing key performance indicators, that it's something that it's still part of the direction that we want to start definitely soon, so that information of key performance indicators can also be included as part of this dashboard. So this this version of the dashboard, I would say, is kind of like a step one. And we know there'll be more data that will be coming and we'll be able to show here, including how do we measure progress specifically for all of these different programs and developments. So yeah, so that is it for me now. So I'll open it up for questions or discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Ado. I appreciate it. Ms. Leto, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead.
I'm sorry, did you call me?
Yes.
I would suggest on the slide with the community initiated solutions that I know that you actually labeled the indirect services, but I would label the total households served and households of color served as direct services, because I think that's going to be really, I mean, I would just be really explicit about that. I know it makes it a little longer.
Yeah.
And is a little bit awkward, but I think it would be helpful. The other thing, and I don't know if there's maybe you can just star it or something, but it might be helpful to indicate on the grants whether they're 2 or 3 year. I think there's only one that's a 2-year grant. And so maybe you just star that one and indicate that everything else are 3-year grants. But because I just know organizations are going to look at those numbers, and for some of those, it's going to look like a really huge amount when it's really a 3-year grant. So just.
That is a great point. And so this is, yes, we will definitely add this. And there's only so much information we can have on this dashboard. So one of the things that we're planning on doing too is if we're going to put some sort of like star somewhere that we need to explain, we would be able to do that in the actual website. So this is a great comment. Thank you, Ms. Leto.
Sure.
Do we have other questions? Ms. Summers, go ahead.
I noticed on this same slide with the community initiated solutions we're looking at that I believe last time in the update last month, we had an update that one of the organizations did not have final contract signed, and I noticed it isn't in the dashboard. I wondered if you could just a yes or no, like, is that contract finalized or is that still in the works? I think it was just one organization.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think the ones we have showing here are the ones that the contracts have been signed.
Okay, so that's still not finalized for that one organization. Is that correct?
Is correct.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that is correct. There is one, we're taking more time to make sure they are prepared before the contract is executed.
Great.
And we hope to have that by the 1st of the year. We're working with them quickly, and we hope they will be ready by the 1st of the year.
That's awesome. I just checking. Thank you.
We have a question from Mr. Conley. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is a very simple question, and thank you for this. This looks really awesome. I'm watching from my phone screen right now, so I can't see very well, and I'm curious, is there any chance I could have an opportunity to review it before it goes live? Would you mind sharing that link with us? That
Yes.
would be awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Conley, did you have a follow-up? Your hand is still up. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
No, that's it for now.
Thank you. Do we have other questions and comments? Go ahead, Ms.
Yeah, I guess going back to the other one, is there like a map function of that at all? Because, you know, some of them you can kind of suss out, like where they might be, like pathways at Rosewood Courts. If you know something about Austin, you can figure that out. But like others, Parker, I mean, I don't know where Parker Apartments on Parker Lane is. I know they probably told me in a presentation a few months ago, but a map or a link to take you to the location might be helpful.
That is a great point. And this all has to do with like what is supported by this like Microsoft Power BI platform, which does not like very well GIS maps. And but however, this platform was able to connect us with the database that we had the real estate projects in. So yes, we've definitely thought about this. One thing we can do is, since this is going to be living in a website, then we can have within that website a maps that can show where these projects are located. So yes, but we can have it like in the actual dashboard. So yeah.
That's fine. I think just having it available would be of assistance. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Mather. Do we have other questions or comments? I had a few sort of comments and questions. One question I had for the displacement risk donut. The denominator, is the denominator all chronic vulnerable active areas in the city, or only those areas where funds are eligible to be used?
Yes, the second one.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. I think
Yes.
that honestly is very informative, because I think it helps us understand where most of our investments are going and how we're thinking about this. So that's very helpful.
Exactly. That is that was the idea for that. Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Also, I don't know if it would be possible, could we have information on, I really appreciate the MFI, by the way, that's very helpful to see that breakup. Is it possible also to add in a breakup of ownership and rental? I'm sorry, I'm like about to throw in 5,000 more data, and I don't know how much space the dashboard has before it becomes overburdened with information. But a breakup of sort of rental versus ownership, I'm going to assume that those 59 units that are 61 to 80% are ownership units. So if we could have that breakup so folks can understand, that's one thing. The other thing I was going to say was, would we have data and understanding of number of bedrooms as well? So are we doing more studios or 3 bedrooms, or that would just be great to see. And again, I'll be honest, the folks that you're working with might be able to tell you, is it visually just becoming too busy, right? And maybe it's information we share separately, but at least for the CSC purposes, I know it would really benefit me to see that breakdown as well.
Okay.
And I'm sure, I think people in the community would be interested in as well, because that is important, right? As much as we of course want to have deeper affordability, which we can see here, but we also want to have family friendly units.
Right. Yeah. That's a great, those are great points.
And then if we can go to the next slide, another comment I had was just, this is just honestly a language comment. We say total renters served. I'm assuming we mean total renter households served.
Yes.
So just because I feel like y'all use the household language elsewhere, just so clarity wise, I mean, I can see right now that it's 27 and 27, so I assumed it was the same data set. But otherwise, honestly, the first moment I read it, I thought you meant 27 individuals are being served. So just that piece would help in clarifying. And then I agree with what Ms. Plateau was saying of maybe figuring out how do we talk about the indirect services versus, and maybe honestly, it's, I don't know, right? I think it's something to be teased out, but maybe what we're talking about in fact is that we're sharing information on services with 19,346, which is amazing, right? The ability to be able to share available services with people and make them known is amazing. But at the same time, 27 households have received a service, right? So there's slight distinction, because of course, not everyone who's receiving information will apply or be eligible and so on. So again, I leave it to you all to decide what language makes sense, but I would agree with what Mr. Conley said. I think this is amazing. This is a great piece of data. I know this will help us very much in decision making as we move forward, but I know a lot of community members have asked for this kind of information, and I think this will be extremely helpful for folks as well. I'm sorry, I'm gonna ask for one other thing, which actually we might not have data on this, which is if we even have an average of what a household size is, that would be helpful. But I also understand if we don't have that data available, because of course we're relying on our on these organizations to provide us with data, and I don't want to encumber them with providing us with an unusual amount of reporting data.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I'll have to look, but I think it's something that we could potentially have for the CIS organizations. We have because the CIS, as y'all are aware, programs is something that it's totally new. We started it, kind of from scratch. we were able to build the reporting form. You know, basically all this information is in the reporting form, right? And we have even extra information that we could kind of use to assess who we're serving. So we have a little bit more liberty. So I have to go and check it, but I do think if we do have it, we definitely should show it. We're a little bit more constrained on the real estate side because, you know, that's kind of a different, but yeah, I think I'll go back, and if we do have it, we definitely will show it.
I will caveat that by saying if we don't have it, I would err on the side of not having extremely, difficult reporting. So if it's like one more thing where folks are like, oh, we don't collect that, now we have, I would not want to go that direction. But if that information is sort of readily and easily available, it would be good to see. Again, more of a suggestion than I'm not asking for a requirement.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll pause there. I feel like I had a lot of questions and comments. I don't know if other folks have questions and comments as well. Not hearing anything else, I'll say, and thank you so much, Ms. Fowler, to you and your team, Ms. Jackman, to you and your entire team for this work. I think this is, I mean, the dashboard in itself is very exciting, but it's also just very exciting to see the work that we've already been doing to really help stabilize families and households. This is very exciting work. So thank you all and congratulations. Okay, we can move on to our next item. Thank you very much. We had an introduction from our internal audit team. That'll be perfect. Thank you. Y'all can get us started.
Sure. Yeah, I'm feeling like that is a very tough act to follow. That dashboard looks wonderful, so I'm impressed to see all the work that's gone into that. My item, I think, is pretty simple and straightforward. Really, I just wanted to introduce myself to this group. I'm Katie Houston. I lead our internal audit group here. It's a very small group, small but mighty, we like to think. It's just me and my colleague Cameron Legrone. And we report to the ATP board, which means we're separate from Greg and the administration of ATP. That said, we work very closely with Greg and his team to conduct our work, and it's common in my profession to report to the board. The reason for that is really so we can kind of more objectively and independently evaluate how ATP is progressing and really how we're doing as an organization. So I just wanted to introduce kind of what we do. Generally speaking, we have 3 types of projects, the audits being kind of the lion's share of what we do. And then separate from that, we do some advisory type work, which I'm really more in like consulting engagements where we might meet with Greg and his team to talk about process improvement and how we can get even better. And then follow-up activities. So far, we have done none because we are so new. We have had nothing to follow up on, but that's slated for this year. And in terms of reporting kind of beyond the board, we also communicate our results with the FAR committee. So there's another avenue where we're kind of sharing what we do, but I wanted to also introduce us to this group. If you're interested in seeing our work or learning more about us, we have a website. The easiest way to find us is if you just go to the normal ATP webpage. On the very far right, I think it's under leadership. There's a drop down, there's board meetings, and then internal audit is right below that. So if you click there, you can see the audit reports that we've released, our audit plan. I'll use this as an opportunity to put in a plug. We're kind of always soliciting ideas for functions that maybe would benefit from an audit or a topic that y'all would like to see reviewed. Please reach out to us. We'd love to hear your thoughts if something's going really well at ATP or not going so well, or you have questions about things. We'd love to hear from you and get your insights. And then the last thing I'll say is separate from our regular audit work, we operate, oh, thank you for pulling that up. Very nice, on display here. I'll also say we're working now on making this more visually appealing. We know, we know we have some improvement opportunities here. But there you can see where Giannis is scrolling that there's our audit reports, and at the very end there, separate from our audit work, we manage ATP's ethics hotline. I just wanted to promote that as a resource for y'all as well. And really, we'd love to hear from you. So if anything comes up that you have an interest in, or if you'd ever like us to come before you and present our audit work, we're happy to do that. I know you have Gretchen here on your committee, and so there's a little continuity with FAR already, but if you'd ever like to hear from Cameron and I directly, we're available. And that's all I have.
I appreciate that very much. I'll open it up again to questions and comments that folks might have. Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Owens.
Oh, you can go. I see what your question is, and then
We do. I was just gonna open up with more basic questions. Sometimes we have community members either listening in or watching the recording later. Can you talk about, a lot of people think about financial audits only. Can you talk a little about the scope of the work that y'all are able to do so that we all understand fully of the kind of recommendations we might be able to make or how we can engage with y'all?
Sure. So financial audit is a big part of my profession, but really what Cameron and I do is called performance audit. Generally speaking, we are evaluating a function, really any ATP function, or program or policy or system, tool, resource, to see if it's operating effectively and efficiently, and broadly speaking, are we making good use of taxpayer resources? So really anything that ATP does, and more broadly related to Project Connect, is kind of fair game for us. And our projects usually start with a fairly broad objective. If y'all have the opportunity to pull up our audit plan, you can see what those objectives are for our current project list. And then we sort of drill down and come up with a more specific scope of work, kind of based on the risks that we see. So we do a lot of interviews and look at a whole lot of documents. That part is pretty consistent with our financial auditor colleagues. Read a whole lot of things about what's going on in the organization, and we drive our projects and our tests around where we think there are opportunities to improve and make things even better. And then the output of our work is, like I said, a product that goes to the board, but we also work closely with Greg and his team to get management responses. We make recommendations on how ATP can be better, and then Greg will say, whether he agrees or disagrees with those recommendations, usually agrees, and provides an action plan on what the organization is going to do to address those risks. So I'd say maybe in layman's terms, I would call it kind of more risk management type work. But yeah, broadly speaking, I think our projects are evaluating if we are effective and efficient in our work.
Really appreciate that. Ms. Summers, did you have a?
yeah, I do. So I think one of the things in transit development projects nationwide, especially in the US, buzz has been like, why does transit cost so much in the United States? And I want to be really clear that I'm asking these questions as a pro-transit person, because if we spend less on what we're doing, then we get more in the end, right? We have money left over to do other things. So that's like, I'm super pro-transit, but the more that we can make the best use of our money, the more transit we get, which to me is obviously an awesome thing. So I think there's been a lot of attention to the cost of transit in the US. And I know we're operating in a difficult environment with inflation, and people have argued Austin is more expensive than other cities to build projects. I don't know. I mean, I think we're figuring that out because this is the first time we're doing light rail. So we're figuring all those things out. But is that kind of analysis the type of thing that your office would do, like comparing the costs, of our projects and making sure that we're not, among the most expensive per mile project in the US or something like that? Is that the type of work that your office would engage in?
Sure, definitely could be. That is a fantastic pitch for, a good project that I think would look at that and maybe vet the accuracy of some of those statements. Is it more expensive here? Maybe it is, or is it not? And what's the best practice there? I think that could make for a very good project in terms of our current plan and sort of kind of the resource element that I think you're bringing up. You know, costs and how are we, you know, making the best use of our resources here. We have a project this year on our procurement process. Procurement is a lot of what we're doing now in this early phase. I know y'all know that already, but that I think it is of our current project list, maybe the one that would offer the most opportunity for cost savings. But the short answer is yes, that would be a project we could look into.
It's great to hear. And I know like there's like lots of academics and people worldwide that are researching like just why is it so expensive to do transit in the US compared to other, you know, other, I guess, Western nations perhaps. But yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
Do we have other questions and comments? Mr. Conley, please go ahead.
Sure. I have one question, and it's kind of, I think, sort of on the flip side of you know, of Susan's question, which is really sort of, I think there's, you know, tremendous benefit in really figuring out how we can be as efficient and effective as possible. I am curious what the sort of reporting requirements or time burden the audit entails for ATP staff, knowing that this is a very new project, it's early on, it's a new organization, there's a lot of work to get done. So I am curious, you know, is there a sense of sort of what this requires of the ATP staff in terms of time commitment?
Yeah, that's a great question. Generally, our audit projects, which again are kind of the bulk of what we do, are split into 3 phases. It's pretty simple stuff: planning the project, and then field work, which is kind of executing the tests, and then reporting. I would say the bulk of the burden, that sounds like a not a nice word, but yeah, maybe that's essentially what it is, that burden that would be applied to staff would happen in that planning phase. And that's really us trying to get an understanding of what we have in place currently and what management believes to be kind of opportunities to improve. And it kind of depends on the project. I don't know if I could give you, you know, an exact number of hours per week, but in the beginning phases, you know, I would say it's maybe a couple hours a week, mainly participating in interviews and responding to our emails for document requests. Then I think most of our projects, we kind of go dark for a while and we're able to kind of operate on our own, really without disruption to management, really all the way until we get to the report. And at that point, we have recommendations that we're bringing back to management saying, you know, we did this work, we identified these, you know, let's say problem areas. Here's our suggestions on how to improve. So then there might be a little bit more requirement for management to participate at that point. Again, I'd say maybe that's a couple hours a week. But that's probably a good high level overview of what those expectations are. I'll also say we're pretty flexible, I would say, in terms of audit groups. And so certainly, you know, I think we understand the project itself and advancing the program, you know, really is paramount to our work as auditors. So we are very flexible in meeting kind of those expectations and working around their schedules.
Appreciate that. Do we have other questions and comments? Ayla, can you talk a little bit about the process for creating the audit plan?
Yeah, that is actually something that I'm open to from y'all. We do a very high level scan. Typically we start in April, May, and that scan includes talking to all kinds of folks. Sometimes we're just combing social media resources or news articles, looking for indications of maybe the public sentiment, areas where members of our community have had questions, or it looks like they don't understand what's happening with the program. We look at audits in other cities, or other communities, ones that have maybe built a light rail system before, or are even already in the operations and maintenance stage. Sometimes that can be really informative. We of course talk to Greg and his team. We talk to our board members. We reach out to, partners at CAB Metro and the city to get their view on kind of what's going well. We spoke to some folks at UT this year. We're kind of in a all hands on deck, get all the information we can from all over the place. And once we have a good, kind of very good laundry list of potential project ideas, then Cameron and I perform a risk assessment, and we're essentially looking at each project to categorize them. We have 8 categories. Ooh, I don't think I can name them all off the top of my head, but some of them would be like safety or financial or governance or strategic risk, kind of to make sure we have coverage in all the different areas. And then we essentially rate every topic based on kind of the risk level, the impact of it occurring, like a safety, a loss of life, would be a very high impact. And then we separately rate the likelihood, right now with where we are in our operations, something like that, loss of life would be probably a very low likelihood, but as we get into construction, that would change. So we're really taking all of them and rating both the impact of the risk occurring and the likelihood, coming up with a score, and then really at that point looking at what's left, what's our bandwidth, how many projects can we do, and then preparing the plan from there. And at that point we share it with Greg and his team and the board, and then sometimes folks say, can you do this one and not this one? There's some kind of back and forth there, but ultimately we get approval from the board and publish our report. That happens in September.
I appreciate that. That's very helpful. And maybe what I'm thinking is, as you're starting off on that process or somewhere in April, if it makes sense, maybe you can come back to the committee, you can present something to us, what ideas that you're thinking, and maybe we can also pitch some ideas. We also have a governance working group. If you want, like, digging deeper into something, we can have a conversation at the governance working group as well. And we're going to be going through a little bit of a reorganization of our committee, so working groups to be seen, but certainly I think it would make sense, or maybe we can be like a little bit of a part of that process and see what we're hearing from committee members or from the people that we're working with.
Yeah,
helpful.
Awesome. I would love that.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions and comments that folks might have? Okay, well, we can move on, and thank you, Giannis, for sharing the website and walking us through it as well. That's very helpful. Okay, well, this takes us to our last discussion item for the day, which is at the CSU recruitment, which I believe, Chandra, you?
I think so. So just giving you
Yes.
an update of where we are. And so yes, the application period is open until Friday. Currently, I have
Next Friday.
next Friday, the 17th. Thank you very much. So this is what happens when the days run together. But next Friday, November 17th, it closes at 11:59 p.m. Currently, I have I believe it's over 35 applications, and that includes those who are seeking reappointment. And so we're doing a final push out in the community to get the word out and make sure everybody has the opportunity to apply. I've been posting in some Spanish language publications as well on KACI earlier today and in other spaces. Our next step, so once the application period closes on that Friday, I will be getting all of the application packages together to the nominating committee that weekend in order to give as much time as possible for review. Because our goal is to have the nominating committee meet that very last week of November in order to have time for conversation, discussion, and recommendations to move to all 3 bodies of the joint partnership for December meetings. That is our goal. That is our aspiration. Right now, we are on target. Of course, you never know what's going to happen in the process, but at least that's what we're aiming for. So, Ms. Lopez, I will be reaching out to you tomorrow to talk about your schedule and just get you updated on everything that's going on. But that is where we are. Any questions around that?
We should have questions, comments, thoughts.
I know last time there were interviews? Is that contemplated this time for the applicants or?
It is an option open to the nominating committee, and we're leaving it then to decide if they do need interviews. And if they do, yes, that extends the process, and so we'll be pushed into 2024, and so that remains to be seen.
Okay, thank you.
I actually will follow up to that. I'm sorry. You said that pushes the process into 2024. Would we still? I'm trying to think, does that mean we would not have maybe a meeting in January? Okay.
That would be correct.
So that in that scenario, the CAC would not have a January 2024 meeting until everybody is seated, which is, okay,
That would be right.
okay. Any other questions that folks have? I'll make a plug again to all of our CAC members. For those who have already submitted their application to seek renomination, thank you so much for your continued service and for your, desire to have continued service. And for those who are interested, please do fill that in as well. I'm excited that a certain amount of folks are continuing because it would be great to have continuity in our committee. I know everybody has done great work. I also understand the need to figure out our own sort of, balancing out the different duties and responsibilities that we all have as human beings. But I do appreciate, yes, a reminder to do that. And I know a lot of y'all have already been doing this, but share it out with other people that you work with, your neighbors, community members, other folks that you think would be a good fit. I think this is a great opportunity for a lot of folks to engage in this process. And sorry, go ahead.
So the only thing I'll add is the link is available on our website. If for some reason you want a PDF copy or a hard copy, we are able to give that to you as well.
I appreciate that. And Michelle, would you remind me, for the existing CAC members who are seeking renomination, there's a separate link, correct?
For the individuals who went through the appointments process the first time, yes. And so if I have not received a response from you, I will follow up and send you that link again.
Appreciate that. So just a reminder again, if you want to seek renomination, use the link that is shown. You do not have to go through the full application since you've already been through that in the past. So that way, it's a little bit of a lesser barrier if folks want to seek renomination.
And this is not, you can tell me if it's not cogent, but our meetings, like I know on other boards and commissions I serve on, you have to adopt a meeting schedule for the subsequent year for bylaws. Is that the case for us, or is it just automatically continuing the second Thursday for 2024?
It's actually a good question that I think right now we have it set as continuing second Thursday, but that's actually I'm gonna call that a Brandon Carr question that we can follow up.
It's something my board and commission has to do. And I was reminded about this because we actually are second Tuesdays and we were supposed to meet Tuesday, and the Austin City Clerk called us hours before the meeting and said you can't meet because it's election day due to council resolution. So anyway, having your meeting calendar really straight is obviously a good thing. So
I appreciate that, Mr. Carr. I don't know if you have a comment right now, or we can follow up with you later as you think is important.
Definitely something we can put on the December agenda.
I appreciate that, Mr. Carr. So then, Ms. Summers, thank you for, by the way, bringing that to my attention. What we'll do is maybe work to the executive committee on our draft calendar. So that will be Ms. Summers, Ms. Flato, and myself. And so we can check against election days, holidays, AISD holidays, make sure that we're responsive to everyone's needs. We'll officially make that request as a future agenda item when we get there. Other comments on the CAC recruitment? Okay, we can move on to our staff updates. Can we start with City of Austin? Because it might be that y'all either have a very short update or might not have an update since you already gave us a really great presentation.
I don't have anything else.
I appreciate that, Ms. Dorado. Ms. Barr, go ahead, and then Ms. Chavez will come to you.
Hello, Edna Parr, Community Engagement Manager at CAP Metro. So I have two updates. I have an update from last month's meeting on the public safety program. So we heard from you all. We had your feedback and your comments, and right now we're working on mapping out the engagement and expanding PSAC, and also to include subcommittees. So then we can also invite general public. So working on that model, but I don't have a complete presentation yet. So we're working internally, plus also with our committee members, plus also community members. And we just want to have a more substantial follow-up and a complete presentation in December. So if you have any questions or any input from now until then, please reach out to me. And again, we really appreciate your feedback on that. And we'll definitely see you in December and probably more in 2024 as well, hopefully. And then the second one is ETOD. So I know originally it was going to be on the agenda, but the survey ends tomorrow. So Anna Land suggested that we complete the engagement report and summary, and then she's also going to come back in December. I know she's asked, and I don't know what the agenda looks like then, but then she can do the complete engagement summary, plus the report out that she has up to that point. But those are the only.
I appreciate that, Ms. Barr, and I'll make a few comments and then open it up to questions if folks have any. The first one is, I do want to let the entire committee know that Ms. Barr and I had this conversation on whether it made sense to continue our public safety conversation this month. And I thought it made sense to push it to December so that we have a more cohesive and comprehensive conversation. We can get full updates. So, I'm glad that I was informed of that and we made this decision together. And then secondly, again, I'll reiterate that if you have comments or feedback, please feel free to email Ms. Parra or follow up with a meeting if you would like to. Ms. Parra, if you could put your email address maybe in the chat. That way folks can see it, that would be great. So again, if you all have any thoughts or follow-up, feel free to reach out to her. And then of course, we'll have the ability as a committee to get an update in December or as appropriate to provide feedback as well. But if somebody wants to dig in deeper or have a more, deeper conversation, please feel free to reach out to her. I know I've had the privilege of doing that, so I want to make sure that everyone has that equal opportunity.
Yeah, and I just dropped my email in the chat, and I hope everyone can see it. It says hosts and panelists, but and I appreciate that, and I appreciate kind of the patience and again the feedback and the conversations, Chair Abez, for us to get here. So
I appreciate it, Ms. Barr. And the other request, if I can make, is while we're getting updates from other staff, if you can also drop a link to the ETOD survey in the chat. So again, a reminder to everybody listening in, or otherwise this closes tomorrow. So if y'all have feedback, please do fill out that survey. You'll see some really in-depth information of some of the work the consultants have been able to do. So frankly, if you're interested in the ETOD work, I would highly recommend that folks go through that. If nothing else, it's a learning exercise of some of the work that's being presented. It's quite a lot of information. So we'll wait to have that in the chat as well if folks want to engage in that. Ms. Farr, did you have any other updates or?
No, that's all. And for ETOD too, we are doing presentations, any community group and anything during the phases and even after this is closed, just so people can learn if they hadn't had a chance to engage during this phase. So let me know, same email, but I'll reach out to Anna and connect with you all with her too, if that's the case. And the first one is the ETOD webpage, and then the surveys, that second link.
I really appreciate that, Ms. Farr.
Thank you all so much, and see you in December.
Thank you. Ms. Chavez, go ahead.
All right, and as always, I love sharing my screen. Hold on. A million minutes. Okay. I mean, this is a very quick update to letting you all know that we have design principles outreach happening starting next week. These are open house events that are going to take place November 16th on Thursday. We have 2 events happening on the same day. So first at the UT Texas Union on the 3rd floor from 11 to 2. Yes, food will be provided. Please stop by and see us on November 16th from 5 to 8 at the Texas School for the Blind. Again, then later in December at Lively Middle School, then the Topless Rec Center, both in the evening timeframes. These are open house models, so that means that it's come and go. You don't need to pre-register, though. We would also love to see you register ahead of time if you can. There will be facilitated activities around user experience, and the goal is for us to really understand. You know, some of you participated in the activities that occurred over the springtime. This is really a continuation of that experience for us to understand user experience, understand the challenges you're having around transit, the opportunities that you see, that we're going to make this light rail system really people first. We're going to follow that up with a virtual meeting. So sort of if we can't make it in person, it's going to be a virtual event on December 3rd, which we'll do a follow-up of like, sort of understanding where we are from all these other open houses and also having additional feedback from anyone who wants to attend virtually. In addition, we're going to be launching a survey because we all love surveys. So next week, we will be launching a survey. I'll make sure you all have direct access to it. Not only will it be an online survey through public input, but we're also going to put some comment boxes in key areas around the alignment spaces so that individuals who maybe have challenges with getting online or maybe don't even want to go online can actually drop handwritten comment cards into those boxes. And that will be open starting next week and probably through the end of the year. Our goal for the user experience work is to get all this research done so that we can do a report out in January. Then on top of that, we are taking a step from a ATP perspective to really get ahead and see what the calendar looks like for 2024 so that we can come back probably. I won't add it to the December agenda because I feel like December is already pretty heavy, but we can talk about when we come back to talk through what the 2024 calendar looks like for engagement, what that looks like for feedback opportunities for community so that we can map it out together.
I appreciate that. Can I ask just a quick question? Sure. Will the interpretation services be available as well?
Yeah, so Spanish will be available on site. If people need additional languages, we just need to know so we can plan ahead of time, but yes.
And American Sign Language can be requested as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much. Do you have other?
That's all I have for today.
Do we have any questions or comments?
I had a question for Cat Metro, and this is a future agenda item. I know that we're coming back with another public safety item in December. I just want to put a pin in that. I think it's really important for us to hear about, and I might get the name wrong, but the community intervention program. I think that that's something we really need to hear about as part of that. I think we didn't really get to that last time, so I think that would be very helpful for this body.
I think so. I think that's the plan right now. And I'll check in with Courtney to make sure what time we have and how we break that up if we have to, but that's the plan, to bring it together. And also I'm hoping that we update the webpage by then to have that full picture of the 3 prongs, and especially the ambassador work that's happening now and the community intervention specialist that's happening too. So
great, thank you.
And Ms. Summers, I do want to acknowledge really that it's partially my mistake, honestly, because we just did not have the time last time to be able to get to that, even though it looked like Cap Metro staff was available and prepared. So we'll make sure that as we come back in December, there really is a hefty amount of time to be able to dig into that. Thank you. This moves us on to our DAC delegate reports. We'll start with FAR. I don't know, Ms. Plato, if you have any updates for the committee.
No, they haven't met for a little while.
I appreciate that. And then I don't know if we have any updates from anyone from the EAC and PSEC as well.
No, but I should give a quick update on that. And so why they're not meeting.
Speak up. I hope folks can hear you clearly.
So that should be the staff update I should have updated as well, which is that we're currently going through a governance review around the tax themselves. And so that process should be complete, I believe, before the end of this year. And so part of the reason we're not meeting is to allow time for that review to happen. And then we'll reinitiate once it's done.
I appreciate that. And I'll make a comment on that to say that actually with our change in our membership, some of our nominated interlocutors, for lack of a better word, I'm sorry, I'm going to forget what we call them. We lost some of those people. And so we are waiting for the governance element to be done, and then we'll work on renomination to that as well, just to make sure that we have continuity, but I just did wanted all of the dust to settle to get to that, and it seems like there's a little bit of pause in the work, so I don't think we're missing out on any critical conversations here. Okay, I'll move on to future meetings and agenda items. You had a request?
The calendar, passing our calendar dates for 2024. If indeed we have to do that per bylaws, which sounds like we probably do.
And maybe even if we don't, we just go ahead and
It's good to have it, yeah.
do it for clarity, so everybody has it in front of them, and I'll second that item as well. And then public safety again is coming back anyways, and we'll do it the same way. You're the nominator and I'm the second on that. Do we have any other future agenda items that folks want to request? I will second very proudly say that as we're coming to the end of the year, apart from things that have popped up in the last month and this month, we have gotten through all of our agenda item requests that we've kept up with. I think there's larger conversations that we're still gonna keep engaging in, but thank you all for your patience, because I know it really took us a while to get to a number of those items. Mr. Conley, please go ahead.
Yes, I have, this is not an agenda request, it's just a clarifying question. I think you spoke to us at the beginning of the meeting when we nominated Ms. Lopez to the appointment committee, but I'm just curious, could you just clarify for us the timeline around us knowing what our reappointments will be confirmed, and when the kind of new lineup of the CAC will be public?
I appreciate that, Ms. Chavez.
Sure, so, and this is our goal timeline, pending anything that pops up that would delay it. But once the application period closes on Friday, November 17th, the nominating committee will be given about 2 weeks to review all applications that are eligible for review, including reappointments. They will meet the last week of November, so we're aiming to have that meeting no later than December 1st. And then assuming that that meeting is sufficient to review and make recommendations, we will have the postings for all city council, ATP board, and then Cat Metro board after that. So we should know in December.
Okay, so we would definitely know before January if we are reappointed. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's
Is the hope pending any other decisions that the nominating committee might make?
sure. No, okay, that's great. Very helpful. Thank you.
Wait, do we have other future agenda items? Okay, not hearing otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee at 6:12 p.m. and we all get some time back this month. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.